Hello, I'm Claire Smith and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing an analysis video. I did one of these about 5 months ago where I analysed a load of perfume declutter videos and tried to see if there were any trends that popped out of that analysis where particular fragrances were being let go of or particular categories of fragrance were being decluttered. And there were a few trends that I did talk about in that video. So if you would like to watch that, I'm going to leave it linked down below. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be analysing top 10 for life lists from various different YouTubers to see whether I can find an ultimate top 10 perfumes for life list. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Claire Smith. I make videos all about perfume, perfume science, perfume history, perfume psychology, and I also just do some straight perfume reviews and also fun perfume tags. So if that kind of thing interests you and you haven't already done so, then please do consider subscribing, and also please like this video if you like this kind of content. So for the purposes of this video, I've analysed 32 different videos from 30 different content creators, and I've analysed a total of 336 fragrances. And yes, that does mean that YouTubers can't add up because that's not divisible by 10, but we're just going to leave that one there. So for this analysis, I searched YouTube using the search 10 perfumes for life, and then I ordered by most recent, and I watched every video in that list over the last 13 months. I included any fragrance video that included at least one female marketed fragrance in it. So actually you may be thinking to yourselves, well, 32 videos from 30 content creators, what's going on? Well, actually some content creators are making those types of video more often than once every 13 months. So clearly their top 10 for life lists must change quite often. But I guess that kind of video is just quite algorithm friendly, isn't it? It's something that is going to be a guaranteed high view rate for the content creators involved. So as part of this analysis, I looked at the size of the channels that were involved, and actually they ranged massively from 32 subscribers to 1.54 million subscribers at the time of me watching the videos. And actually the median subscriber level was 13,850 subscribers. And out of the 30 different content creators, 12 had subscriber levels over 20,000, which to me suggests that they may be receiving PR perhaps more often than the other channels in that list. And that might skew the results. So that's important for us to look at. I also looked at the geography of those channels. So actually 50% of the channels, 15 of those channels were located within the US, and 6 channels were located within the UK. So 20% of the channels were in the UK. The other 30% were made up of various different countries, including the Netherlands, Germany, Spain, Portugal, and also Nigeria and Canada as well. But really, you know, it wasn't a very diverse list. Every channel, apart from one channel in Nigeria, came from either North America or Europe. So it's not a representation of the world. And that will also impact on the fragrances that are mentioned in these videos, because it's going to be the fragrances that are most available in the US and also Europe. So next, let's analyse which were the most mentioned brands in the top 10 for life lists. So actually 15 brands were mentioned more than 5 times within those 30 lists. So in joint 14th place with 5 mentions each were Jean Paul Gaultier and BDK. And I don't think that's really a surprise. I think we'd expect to see BDK in the top 15 brands. And really Jean Paul Gaultier has had some massive hits with things like La Belle. And so, you know, we'd expect to see that perhaps in the top 15 over the last 13 months. So next, in 12th equal spot were Kilian and Kayali. And they both had 6 mentions each. I'm not really surprised by those two either. Kilian, slightly faded glory now they've been bought by Estee Lauder. I don't think they're quite so loved as they once were. Kayali, they are just a very hyped brand on YouTube. I feel like they've over-released recently, but I'm not surprised to see them in the top 15 brands. Next up in 9th equal place are YSL, Mugler, and also MFK. So YSL, I don't really feel like I hear much about YSL fragrances other than Libre and also Black Opium and maybe even Baby Cat a little bit. But those 3 are really the main fragrance lines that you hear about on YouTube, aren't they? For me, Mugler is a bit of a surprise, and I think that's maybe because there's quite a split between the people who like the older fragrances and the people who like the newer fragrances, and I think maybe they're combining to mean that actually Mugler has climbed this list. MFK, I'm not surprised. They have a lot of big hits and they've got quite a diverse kind of range that I think would mean that they appeal to a lot of people, and I think there is still a lot of love out there for Baccarat Rouge and its flankers. In 8th spot, surprisingly, was Amouage. Amouage has had a really big hit recently with Guidance and also with Material, and I feel like they are becoming more mainstream than they perhaps once were. I really feel like Amouage were very much an avant-garde kind of brand. They had a very distinctive DNA, and that's kind of been eroded recently and has gone very much more into an audience-friendly kind of direction. And yeah, we need to watch Amouage and see how that's going to play out. Recently, there have been rumours that L'Oreal are in talks to buy Amouage. So that's interesting, isn't it? That they're the 8th most mentioned brand in top 10 lists. So in joint 6th position are 2 sister brands, part of the Advent group, Initio and also Parfums de Marly. And I'm not surprised to see these ranking so high on this list because they do gift a lot of fragrances to influencers. And you often see people in videos with huge Parfums de Marly collections in particular. I think Atomic Rose is also very much loved from Initio, and also their Musk Therapy fragrance as well, I think I see a lot of people with. So that's interesting, isn't it, that they are both tying on 10 mentions each. In 5th place was Dior, and I think really why Dior is there is because they have quite a large catalogue of fragrances. They have quite a price range from their Privé line and also from their main line, and I feel like there's a lot of love for the classic Diors and also for the Privé line, and I think that's why they're mentioned quite so many times in 11 lists. So in 4th position are Tom Ford, another Estee Lauder brand, and they are mentioned a total of 13 different times in this list. I think Tom Ford just have a lot of big fragrances out there, and I think they're loved within the perfume community. In 3rd position are Xerjoff, and this doesn't surprise me in the slightest. I see loads of people with Xerjoff bottles, and also get told by my subscribers that Xerjoff fragrances are some of their favourites, so that makes complete sense to me. In 2nd place are Guerlain. Guerlain are mentioned 15 times, and that doesn't surprise me because again, they've got a really large back catalogue of fragrances. There's something for everybody to love there, and they have a very distinctive feel to them. So Guerlain are in 2nd place. So can you guess what the most mentioned brand was? Yes, number 1 position is going to Chanel with 16 different mentions. I feel like Chanel are a very divisive brand, and people really either love them or hate them, and there's not much in between. So yeah, it does surprise me to see Chanel as being number 1. So given we've looked at the top 15 perfume brands in these lists, is there one particular perfume conglomerate company that is doing better than any other? Well, actually it's LVMH with a total of 33 mentions in the top 15 brands, and they own Dior and Guerlain and MFK, so that's not surprising, is it? But also ranking pretty highly were Advent, Estee Lauder and L'Oreal. So finally, let's look at the consensus top 10 for life fragrance list from these videos. So I can't give you a top 10 for life fragrance list because several fragrances tied on this list. So I'm going to give you a top 15 list because that's fairer and will allow me to talk about all the brands that tied at the bottom of the list. So 6 equal position of these top 15 is shared by 10 different fragrances because they were all mentioned a total of 3 times each. And those fragrances are BDK's Gris Chanel, Chanel Coco Mademoiselle, Guerlain's Angelique Noir, also Guerlain's Spiritueuse Double Vanille, Kayali's Vanilla 28, Initio's Atomic Rose, Narciso Rodriguez's Musk Noir Rose, Parfums de Marly's Delina, and Xerjoff's Herbe Pura, and also Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille. So the main thing that I notice about those fragrances that are tied in 6th position is that really they're all based around vanilla. They're a very vanilla heavy kind of bunch. Some of them have vanilla as a main note. It's sometimes just in the title of the fragrance, but even if it's in the background, it is still there. And also in some cases, it's represented by something else. So something that smells very vanilla-y like tonka. The other thing that I notice about these fragrances is that they're quite established. I mean, you can even look at Coco Mademoiselle, that's 23 years old now. But even the more recent ones have been around a few years. They've had time to grow in the market, and that's why they're reaching these positions in this list. So in second equal place were 4 fragrances, and they all had 4 mentions each in those top 10 for life lists. And these fragrances were Chanel's Coromandel, Kilian's Angel Share, Mugler's Alien, and Parfums de Marly's Delina Exclusive. So what strikes me as interesting here is really that there's Delina and there's also Delina Exclusive in the top 15 fragrances being mentioned. And that's interesting because really if Perfumes For Life hadn't have made a Delina flanker, maybe they would have been charting higher in this list. And it's also interesting here that we've got really a very mainstream designer fragrance, Alien, making people's top 10 lists on a regular basis. For that to chart at second equal as the top 10 for life fragrance, I think that says a lot about that fragrance and how much it's loved within the fragrance community. I think Chanel's Coromandel, even though it is from their exclusives range, I think it's just very loved because it's got a gourmand DNA to it, which is very unusual for Chanel. And I guess that might make it stand out amongst their other range of fragrances in that line. So can you guess the first place most mentioned top 10 for life fragrance? This didn't surprise me. So it's actually Amouage's Guidance. So Guidance has been all over the place in the last year and it's been really hyped. And Amouage have really come out of the shadows. They were loved, but they were quite niche. They had a small audience. And really their more recent releases have been a lot more widely received, and I think they've also been giving out perhaps a little bit more PR as well. I see a lot of people with Guidance bottles and I see a lot of people looking for Guidance dupes amongst cheaper fragrance houses as well, and I just think Guidance is something that has really done very well this year, and that's probably why it's just in a lot of top 10 for life lists. So Guidance actually got far and away the most mentions of any of the fragrances here. When you compare it to the second place fragrances, it got nearly double the amount of mentions. It got 7 mentions in comparison to the second place fragrances that got 4 mentions. So that really shows the love for it in the community and just how successful it's been. Amouage must have had such a huge hit with Guidance, and it really was the standout one for most people from that recent collection. So finally, do we have a most loved perfumer? Is there a perfumer that really stands out on this list as being the person behind a lot of the popular fragrances? Well, the number 1 perfumer on this list is actually Quentin Biche. So he's got 3 fragrances in the top 15. He's got Delina, Delina Exclusive, and also he's got Guidance. In second place was Jacques Polge. So he formulated Chanel's Coromandel, and he also formulated Chanel's Coco Mademoiselle. So he's got 2 fragrances in this list. Interestingly, I could not find a perfumer for Initio's Atomic Rose. If anybody knows who the perfumer is for that particular fragrance, can you please let me know, because I'm so curious. So that's it for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, then please press the like button, and please also consider subscribing if you haven't done already. And please let me know, were you surprised by Chanel's dominance in the list of brands, or were you surprised by the number 1 fragrance overall? I'd really love to know your opinions, and please let me know which fragrance would be the top of your top 10 for life. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!